Makara Sankranti. That's the topic for today, because today is Makara Sankranti. It's Makara Sankranti, right? Here in Houston, because it's everywhere. 14th. So that's our topic. I spent a fair amount of time today finding what I could find about what is Makara Sankranti. I found out a lot of things. It turns out that Makara is the Sanskrit word for the constellation that we know as Capricorn. And Sankranti indicates the movement of the sun from one zodiac sign to the next zodiac sign. So Makara Sankranti marks the movement of the sun from the previous zodiac sign into the Capricorn or Makara sign. Now, maybe there's some people here in the room that understand Vedic astronomy and astrology better than I do. You know, cosmology is a whole other thing, but astronomy and astrology. But Makara Sankranti, is, there's 12 constellations, primary constellations and some secondary ones. And there's 12 Sankrantis. And Makara Sankranti is considered a very especially auspicious Sankranti. And there are many things that take place on Makara Sankranti. One of them is our topic for this evening, along with Makara Sankranti, and that is the passing of Grandfather Bhishma. So I plan to spend a little bit of time discussing, maybe I'll start with that, Grandfather Bhishma. Grandfather, anything that has to do with the history of Mahabharata is very involved and complex. Just like, here's a for example. For example, according to Mahabharata, when Bhishma Dev left his body on Makara Sankranti, he went back to the position of being one of the 8 Vasus. Because before he was Bhishma, he was one of the 8 Vasus. Then, you know, what are Vasus? And there's the whole... Vasus are warrior-like people that have some service in the heavenly realm. They're protectors, etc. They're very powerful. And it's a post that changes. Different persons take the post of Vasus. So part of the complication is, according to Mahabharata, when Bhishma left his body at his own discretion on Makara Sankranti, because it marks an auspicious date, and also according to Bhagavad Gita. Some of you like Bhagavad Gita. Who knows where it says in Bhagavad Gita about the departure of the soul, chapter 8, departure of the soul, where when the sun is rising in the northerly direction, or not rising, moving in the northerly direction, it's an auspicious time for a yogi to depart. It's chapter 8, did he mark the page? Text 14:15. Here's chapter 8. I'll read the verses. Just have to find them. There we go. For one who... That's not right. 14. Okay. Oh, such a sorrow. Where are the pages I asked you to print? Where are the pages I asked you to print? Huh? I wish it were true. It's true. Okay, yeah. I'm very sorry. It's 24:25. 8, chapter 8, verses 24-25. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that Supreme by passing from the world during the influence of the fiery God in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, and during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. And then it goes the other direction. The Makara Sankranti, here's the Earth planet. See? And the Earth is spinning, right? The Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees, that's what the scientists say. And it spins. And as the Earth spins, in 24 hours it's day and night. So that's one movement. The sun is one place and the Earth is spinning. Also, the sun is moving in relation to the Earth, and the sun is moving in a southerly direction, goes down to the bottom, and then goes back up in the northerly direction and reaches the top, and then it goes back down again. And that cycle is 360 days, or 365 days, we say, by solar calendar. But it's a little, so the Vedic calendar is a combination of lunar and solar. Don't ask me to explain it. But combination. I understand a little bit, but not thoroughly. So, as the sun is moving in the southerly direction, it reaches a bottom position where it starts to move in the northerly direction. That position where it starts to move in the northerly direction is Makara Sankranti. And it's not exactly Makara Sankranti, because it's when Makara Sankranti is when the sun passes through the constellation Capricorn or Makara from the previous one. The previous one is Aries, I think. Here it is. I'm going to read something. This is a science class. Did you know, maybe you know, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote a book. And the book was about Vedic astrology. When he was around 2021, he wrote his first book. He was the most noted astrologer in all of India, and he gave it up because it was on the material side, but he knew it, and it's really technical. But here's a purport from Chaitanya Bhagavat. What's Chaitanya Bhagavat? Chaitanya Bhagavat is the life of Lord Chaitanya that was written before Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote it. And it's mainly the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip and less about his life after he left Navadvip and went to Puri. So when he took sannyas was on Makara Sankranti. So that's one of the celebrations. So he writes, the planets traverse through the wheel of the zodiac. Notice on the screen, there's the wheel of the, we'll spend some time on what passing of the sun through the wheel of the zodiac looks like through an astrolabe. This wheel of the zodiac is divided into 12 equal portions. You divide 12 into 360 and you get equal portions. It's the constellations of 12. The portions of each 1/12 of the zodiac wheel and each are further divided into 30 parts. That's months, days of the month. 30 parts times 12. The 12 portions of the zodiac are, and it gives the Sanskrit name and the Western constellation name. Would you like to hear the names? Mesha, or Aries. Vrisha, Taurus. Mithuna, Gemini. Karkata, Cancer. Now that's the other auspicious Sankranti, where one of the things about Makara Sankranti, it's said, it's such an auspicious day, it's an ideal day to perform Shraddha for one's forefathers. And Makara Sankranti is an ideal day, it's 6 months later, for performing Shraddha for one's forefathers, because of the auspiciousness of the sun entering into the next constellation. So, Karkata, or Cancer, then Leo, or Simha, Virgo, or Kanya, Libra, or Tula, Vrishchika, or Scorpio, Sagittarius, Dhanu, bow, and that's the constellation that comes just before today's constellation, Capricorn, or Makara, and then 2 more, Aquarius, or Kumbha, and Pisces, or Meena, fish, right? The people of earth see the sun traverse through the wheel of the zodiac. The movement of the sun through the rashis, or the constellations, is called Ravi, that's the sun, Samkramana, the passage of the sun through different constellations. The entrance of the sun into the Karkata Rashi is called Dakshina Nayana. Dakshinayana, or the southern way. Sun is going down. Or its entrance into the Makara Rashi is called Uttarayana, the northern way. In every solar year, there is one Dakshinayana and one Uttarayana. So this is explaining, from his vantage point of Vedic astronomy, Mahaprabhu's taking of sannyas on Makara Sankranti. Makara Sankramana, or the entrance of the sun into the Makara Rashi from the Dhanu Rashi, is called Uttarayana Sankramana. The stationary wheel of the Rashis is calculated from the nakshatras. It's technical. If you want to do, somebody's astrological chart, you have to know these terms. The nakshatras are different divisions of each of the constellation movements. I don't understand it. Some people understand it. Does anybody here understand it? Okay. We're all in the same boat. We have some idea, but not enough of an idea. So the stationary wheel of the Rashis is calculated from the nakshatras. The increment between the beginning of the stationary Nirayana and the movable Sayana zodiacs is the measurement known as Anya Namsha. So I don't know anything what that's all about. But the Sagittarius or Dhanu, it's a bow, Sagittarius. When the sun moves from that constellation into the Capricorn constellation, that marks Makara Sankranti. Now, just because I spent some time with this today, I don't know if this is meaningful to you, but I'll say it anyways because I learned it today. I used to think that Makara Sankranti meant where the nights are the longest and the days are the shortest, but that's not correct. The movement of the sun that hits the bottom is not the same. That's the winter solstice that happens sometime in December. And then the sun keeps moving, and when it starts heading in the northerly direction, that's going into the Uttarayana. Ayana, dictionary definition of Ayana is the course of the sun. Uttarayana, that's Makara Sankranti. It starts. And then in between, there's equinox. Fall and spring equinox. So that's like a little technical, how do you calculate what Makara Sankranti is? There are several things that are especially recognized for what happens on Makara Sankranti besides Grandfather Bhishma's choosing that, one can say, based upon what's in Bhagavad Gita. Now, Grandfather Bhishma was a pure devotee, so he didn't need to do that. He chose to do that. Had the option to choose based upon what his father, the benediction his father gave him, but he chose that because, on the one hand, Grandfather Bhishma knew the yoga system. Not only Grandfather Bhishma knew, Dhritarashtra knew. I mean, all the kings, all the qualified persons, they knew. We heard this morning, yesterday evening, we heard yesterday evening that the wife of Karma Muni, what was her name? Devahuti. Devahuti, according to the Bhagavatam, was super skilled in the Ashtanga Yoga system. Ooh, that's nice. So kings and queens, princesses, they knew. They weren't known as yogis. They did something else. And Bhishma, similarly, when it was time, Makara Sankranti time came, he did his, pratyahara. What does pratyahara mean? It's one of the 8 limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga system. It means his whole life was engaged in extending his senses in service to Krishna, in the objects of the senses in service to Krishna. And he knew this Ashtanga yoga system, so he withdrew his senses. Doesn't mean his arms went inside his body. It means the consciousness acting through the active senses and knowledge-acquiring senses was withdrawn, consolidated within. And then Dhyan Dharana Samadhi, he entered Samadhi. It's not that, he knew the process. It's not that he wasn't fixed, his consciousness was not fixed upon Krishna. Otherwise, his consciousness was fixed upon Krishna out of love, out of bhakti. But he also knew this other process. So he engaged himself in this other process at the right time. And otherwise, he was engaged in bhakti, and even that process of Ashtanga for him was bhakti. And the same for Kapila Dev, teaching to his mother. What's Kapila Dev? We discussed Kapila Dev yesterday. I'm not hold this up. We discussed a little bit about Kapila Dev yesterday in relation to a verse from Canto 1, Chapter 2. Kapila Dev speaks almost the very same verse to Devahuti in 3rd Canto. But he's known for teaching Sankhya philosophy, correct? When you hear Kapila Dev, Sankhya philosophy, the propounder of Sankhya philosophy, but he's an incarnation of the personality of Godhead. So why is he teaching Sankhya philosophy? Here's another question. In the age that he appeared, the primary means of achieving spiritual perfection is what? Dhyayate, right? Meditation. In Satya Yuga, meditation is the process. So read I'm sure you will. When you read the Bhagavatam carefully, he is teaching Sankhya, but at the end of the Sankhya section, it's then very quickly, fix your mind upon the Supreme. Because here's the categories of matter, and here's spirit, fix your mind on the Supreme Spirit. But it doesn't stop there. There's 2 elaborate chapters on devotional service. With your mind fixed upon the Supreme, engage in service to the Supreme. And details and details and details and details and details about service to the Supreme. Although over here, he's known for teaching Sankhya philosophy. But Sankhya philosophy has a purpose. And it's not just, know what the divisions of matter are, what the process of creation is based upon the divisions of matter. It's to fix the mind upon the Supreme and engage in undivided service to the Supreme. That's the purpose of Sankhya. Same with Bhishma Dev. Bhishma Dev, he was attached to Krishna, and Krishna was attached to him. They had an interesting relationship, very interesting relationship. One of the explanations given, there's multiple, one of the explanations given about Bhishma Dev fighting on the side of the Kauravas is if he was going to fight on the side of Krishna, he wouldn't see Krishna, but if he was on the side of the Kauravas, he could see Krishna, face to face. That's maybe not the best reason, but that's a reason. And when he made this vow that he would kill Arjuna, he knew that he couldn't kill Arjuna because Krishna would protect him. But what he wanted was for Krishna to show that more important than the honor of a Kshatriya to uphold his word is protecting his devotee Arjuna. This is up here, and anything else is below this one up here. Krishna makes his, Krishna gave his promise, I won't fight, but he's also given his promise, I'm going to protect my devotee. And out of love, he's going to protect his devotee above keeping his word. So Bhishma, in a very clever way, made an arrangement so Krishna had to break his word. And as soon as Krishna picked up the broken chariot wheel of Arjuna and went charging at Bhishma, ready to smash him in the head, he dropped his bow and dropped his arrows. And the sun was setting, and the conch blew, boo, end of the battle for the day. Krishna didn't have to smash him. Perfect arrangement. So what ruled the life of Grandfather Bhishma was love for Krishna. So in the Mahabharata, there's a description of where Grandfather Bhishma went after leaving his body. And I mentioned it. He returned to his post as a Vasar because he had 7 brothers who were the sons of Santanu and Ganga Devi. And Ganga Devi threw them all 7 brothers into the Ganga. And they drowned. But one was left. So we'll tell the background of Grandfather Bhishma, how all of that very unusual set of circumstances came about. However, the Bhagavatam is very clear. He went back to Godhead. And there's a number of quotes of discussions with Prabhupada. Mahabharata says this, but he's fixed on Narayan, so where did he go? Vaikuntha. Yeah, but the Mahabharata, he went Vaikuntha. He went back, because his worshipable Lord was Lord Narayana, four-armed form, Lord Narayana. He saw Krishna as the manifestation of Lord Narayana. He was fixed on, his eyes were fixed on Krishna as he left his body. He went to Krishna, he went to Vaikuntha, which is different than what Mahabharata says. We discussed this yesterday. One of the things we discussed yesterday was, where did the Pandavas go? According to Mahabharata, they didn't go back to Godhead. First they had to see hell, and then they went to heaven. And their seeing of hell is described, it was just an apparition. It was a mystical arrangement. They really didn't have to go to the abode of Yamaraj and see all that awful stuff. It was an apparition. It was a mystical arrangement before they went to heaven. However, the Bhagavatam says that when it was time to leave this world, they left this world in their self-same bodies and went straight to Krishna's eternal abode in Vaikuntha. So now how do you, when you read something that's over here and something, and they're both authoritative, how do you process it? Here's a very simple way to process it. There's the lower court and there's the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is final. End of discussion. Because we discussed this, but Mahabharata is teaching virtue and vice. And there were some mistakes that were made, and so they had responsibility. But their responsibility is taken care of because they were pure devotees. In which Krishna promises, and he keeps his promise. Sarvadharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam raja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. They didn't have to see hell. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha. That was their destination. So it's good to read Mahabharata, and it's better than good to read Srimad Bhagavatam, and then understand if there's some apparent contradiction, then you know how to adjust that apparent contradiction. You go to the Supreme Court, and it's final. One of the references on Makara Sankranti, I'm saving Bhishma for last. One of the auspicious activities during Makara Sankranti that's very traditional is thousands and hundreds of thousands of persons go to Ganga Sagara. Ganga Sagara is a place where the ashram of Kapila Muni I'll read. Sridhar Swami informs us that Kapila Ashram is located at the confluence of the Ganges and the Bay of Bengal, a place now known as Gangasagara. This place is still famous as a place of pilgrimage, and many millions of people gather there every year on the day of Makara Sankranti to take bath. It is called Kapila Ashram because Lord Kapila's living there. Lord Kapila is living there to perform his austerities and penances. Now there's another place where Lord Kapila is. Where's that other place where Lord Kapila is? Those of you that like Ramayana, you know where that place of Lord Kapila is. At the very bottom of the universe. What's he doing at the bottom of the universe? He's purifying the place. Because he's the personality of Godhead, so he can purify any place. The sons of Sagara. You know the story? Anybody knows the story? I see 2, I see 3, I see 4 hands. Sagar was a great king, and he was performing Ashvamedha Yagyas, and Indra started getting nervous. Uh-oh. Maybe King Sagar wants to take over my post. So what did Indra do? He stole the horse. And he took the horse to a place where he thought no one would find it. If they did find it, they'd have a big problem. So he took the horse to this bottom region of the universe where Kapila is. And Sagar was told by the priest, you got to find that horse. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. Because we started the yagya, and it can't be another horse, it has to be that horse. So he sent his sons to find the horse. They came back, we can't find him. He said, find him. Find that horse somehow. So they dug up the earth and this and that and the other thing, and they finally found the horse. And when they found the horse, they saw Kapila Dev in meditation. They thought, aha, there's a thief. So they started to attack Kapila. Kapila opened his eyes, and there's many paintings about this. The Bhagavatam is very clear. It's not that his eyes burned them. The paintings show fire comes out of his eyes and they burn up and become ashes. Rather, the Bhagavatam says that because of their sin of attempting to kill Kapila, that sin, their bodies burst into flames. And there's a pile of ashes. So Kapila is at the bottom of the universe. And the sons didn't come back, and so there's a long history of Bhagirata brought the Ganges down to wash the ashes of his deceased forefathers. And so the Ganga, that's how the Ganga came down from higher planets. You've heard that, right? Yes? Some of you haven't. The Ganga came into this universe by Vamana sticking his toe through the covering of the universe, and the celestial waters came down and went down as far as it's carried by celestial planes, airplanes, to Dhruvaloka, or the pole star. Where's the pole star, anyways? I told you it's good science class. The pole star is in the upper planetary regions, but it's not at the top. The pole star, I'm going to show you shortly a little video that shows you where the pole star is. But just, using my hands and my mouth, there's 14 planetary systems. This is Vedic cosmology, 7 lower, 7 upper. And the three that we're familiar with is Bhu, Bhuvar, and Svargaloka. This one, where we are, is Bhuloka. And above Bhuloka is Bhuvarloka. Bhuvarloka is a region where they're not demigods, but they do service for the demigods. Gandharvas, Apsaras, Kinnaras, and so forth and so on. The Siddhas, the Siddhaloka is there. That intermediate region between us and heaven, and then there's heaven. And then there's planetary systems within heaven, and at the very, very top of the planetary systems of heaven, there's the stars, the planets of the 7 rishis, Sapta rishis. That's the Dipper, Big Dipper, that you can see in the sky. And above that is the pole star, North Star, Dhruvaloka. And so that that's at the top of those 3 planetary systems, and there's 4 more above those. Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Brahmaloka. And then there's the covering of the universe. And then there's what's on the other side of the covering of the universe, the Garbhodak ocean. Not Garbhodak ocean, the causal ocean, the Karana ocean. Anyway, so that's within this universe. So that when Vamana poked his toe through the covering of the universe with his second step promised by Bali Maharaj, this causal ocean water came in and went down to the pole star, and it was brought from the pole star by Bhagirath down and down and down and down. There's a whole story of how that happened, and this thing, that thing, the other thing. And finally it washed the ashes of his forefathers, the sons of Cakra. So one of the places where Kapila resides is at the bottom of the universe. But there's another place where he resides, and that's at Gangasagara, at Kapila Ashram, where he does austerities and meditation. And he does what he does. Or at least it's a place where he did those things. So it's sanctified. And that's a place where on Makara Sankranti, many, many hundreds of thousands of people go. And in Ganga Sagara, the festival lasts for 15 days, from Makara Sankranti on for another 2 weeks. So that's a very special place for observance. But it's the special, the auspiciousness of Makara Sankranti is found also in Prayag. It's a very big festival in Prayag. Kumbh Mela begins on Makara Sankranti. And many places in India, Makara Sankranti is an auspicious day, and they have such festivals. It's the day that Mahaprabhu took sannyas. It's the day that his brother, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, had an elder brother. His elder brother's name was Vishwarup. Vishwarup, when Mahaprabhu was young, his brother left home to take sannyas, and he left this world on Makara Sankranti at Pandharpur. Many of you know that place. How many have been to Pandharpur? Yeah, it's a nice place, Pandharpur. Nice place. In Jagannath Puri and many other places in India, Makara Sankranti is the day when they offer the first grains to Lord Jagannath, or they have their local festival all over India. But, it's a real big festival in Puri. the day before, the day of, and they bring deities out and they address the deity in certain ways, and a very lengthy description of the festival on Makara Sankranti, offering the first grains to the deities, and many other things. So that's something about Makara Sankranti. Now let's go to Grandfather Bhishma's passing. I'll read the verse. It's chapter 9. And where's the verse? 1:9. Somebody know it offhand? 23, I think. Sajasar, what is your text message?
1939.
1939. Okay, thanks. Next time I ask you if you could mark the page, that would be really good. It's not 39. 29? Okay. While Bhishma Dev was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The perfect yogis or mystics can leave the material body at their own sweet will at a suitable time and go to a suitable planet desired by them. In Bhagavad Gita 8:24, it is said that self-realized souls who have exactly identified themselves with the interest of the Supreme Lord can generally leave the material body during the time of the fire god's effulgence and when the sun is in the northern horizon and thus achieve the transcendental sky. In the Vedas, these times are considered auspicious for quitting the body, and they are taken advantage of by expert mystics who have perfected the system. Perfection of yoga means attainment of such super mental states as to be able to leave the material body as desired. Yogis can also, and who's a good example of that in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes? Haridas Thakur. He left the body according to his desire. I mean, we don't hear about him practicing mystic yoga, but he was mystic yogi by strength of bhakti. The yogis can reach the highest planetary system within a very short time, and this is impossible for the materialists. Even attempting to reach the highest planet will take millions of years at the speed of millions of miles per hour. This is a different science, and Bhishma Dev knew well how to utilize it. He was just waiting for the suitable moment to quit his material body, and the golden opportunity arrived when he was instructing his noble grandsons, the Pandavas. He thus prepared himself to quit his body before the exalted Lord Sri Krishna, the pious Pandavas, and the great sages headed by Bhagavan Vyas, etc., all great souls. So, in addition to knowing the science, we know that Bhishma Dev had this benediction from his father. So I thought it'd be nice to go over a little bit of the history of how he got that benediction from his father, and for that matter, who was his father, and for that matter, who was he, and yes? Mahabharata stories. So there's a description in Mahabharata that before Vyasa's father, named Santanu, was Santanu, he was a king. And as a king, according to Mahabharata, he achieved a very elevated state. Now it says in the Mahabharata, he achieved Vishnu Loka, which is not clear what that was. I mean, it might seem that it's Vaikuntha Loka, but it says after achieving that planet, this king, doesn't give his name, he was paying a visit or attending a festival at Brahmaloka. So I don't know if, from what place he came to attend a festival at Brahmaloka. But when he went to Brahmaloka, he saw Ganga Devi. And it was woo, 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 Ganga Devi, ki jai. He was very attracted to her, the beauty of Ganga Devi. And she was noticing that he was very attracted to her. And she was, her eyes and other expressions indicated she was attracted to him. Brahma saw the whole thing. And Brahma cursed them both. You should go to earth and take birth on earth. She pleaded with him, please be kind. Please give me a benediction that I can return soon. The benediction was, you can go, but when you're there, you'll have to stay for some time, and there'll be some service. So the service was, on behalf of the Vasus, they made another, demigods make mistakes. We make mistakes. Even demigods make mistakes. So the mistake was, in this case, the 8 Vasus were traveling here and there, and they came to a place by the side of Mount Meru. What's Mount Meru? Those of you that like Vedic cosmology, you know what Mount Meru is. It's the central island of Bhumandala has a very tall, super tall mountain made of gold. And it's shaped like an inverted cone. That is, it's wider at the top and narrower at the bottom. There's no such mountain you'll find anywhere. What to speak of the height of Mount Meru, but that's where they traveled to near the place where the ashram of Vashishta was. And the ashram where Vashishta was, he also had a Kamadhenu, a transcendental cow. And he was off in the forest gathering items for yajna, and while he was there, the Vasus came along and they saw the Kamadhenu. And of the 8 Vasus, one was the chief Vasu of the 8. His name was Dyo. Vasu Dyo. And the wife of Vasu Dyo saw the cow and said, oh, I'd like that cow to be given to my dear friend so-and-so. Can you take that cow for me? So, to oblige his good wife, he took the cow. And when Vashishta came back, he couldn't find his cow. So he went looking here and there, couldn't find the cow. Being a great mystic, he could understand the Vasus had taken the cow. So they understood that Vashishta has got their number. So they brought the cow back. They made profuse apology, and he cursed them. That you have to take birth on earth. You're offenders. And they pleaded and pleaded and pleaded. And he was kind. He said, okay, you can take birth on earth, but you all can come back quickly. I'll make some arrangement. So the arrangement was made. The 8 brothers went to Ganga, knowing that Ganga had to go to earth, and we'll appear as your children, and then you destroy us quickly, we can come back, Vishishta said. But the one, Dio, had to stay. So Vishishta said, you will have to stay for a long time on earth. You'll become a great king, but you'll not be married. You know, he gave some prediction of all of what was going to happen to him. So Ganga descended on earth, as was cursed by Lord Brahma. And as she was moving here and there in her earthly form, she saw a sage. No, a king. A king. And a king, she became attracted to the king. So she came and sat on the lap of the king, saying, I'd like to marry you. He said, well, you sat on the wrong thigh. This is the thigh where the daughter-in-law will sit. But when I have a son, then you can marry him. So his son became Santanu. And Santanu was previously the king that was cursed by Brahma to take birth on earth. He became Santanu. Complicated, huh? So there's Santanu, the son of this powerful king, and his father left the world, and so he became the next king. And Santanu one day was traveling about here and there, hunting in the forest, and he came to the river Ganga, and he saw Ganga Devi, and it was love at first sight. And he requested, would you marry me? It was pretty direct, didn't beat around the bush. And she said, well, on one condition. What's that? Hey, ladies, listen to this. You never object to anything I do. Sure, I'll agree to that. So they became married, Santanu and Ganga. And the first son was born. Knowing that this first son was one of the Vasus, she took the son that was born of her and Santanu, and she threw the son in the Ganga. And Santanu's not supposed to object, right? So he didn't. And 7 sons that happened. And when it came to the 8th son, he said, don't do this. He said, okay, that's it. You made a promise. I'm leaving. Goodbye. And she left. And she took the son. He was given the name by her of Deva Vrata. And she, Ganga, had him trained. Parshuram became his teacher in military skill. And that becomes an important detail later on. Parshuram was his guru, etc., etc., etc. And he got trained in spiritual teachings also. And when he became a young man, Ganga Devi came back. Santanu, here's your son. And I'm going to return to the heavenly planets. See you later. And she left. So there's Santanu with a son. And then some other, you know the rest. It's really involved. It's like, the story of Bhishma is like, it's Mahabharata. Very involved. Very, very involved. So he did many things, many things. He's a very important person in the whole of Mahabharata and the life of the Pandavas and so many things. So many things. So he ended up being this passage from the Canto 1, Chapter 9, is he, Bhishma, served as the father or grandfather of the Pandavas when Pandu died early. So fatherless 5 strapping Kshatriya boys needed someone to guide them and train them and protect them. So grandfather Bhishma performed that service naturally, because they were devotees of Krishna and he was a devotee of Krishna. They had affinity, what to speak of grandfather, grandson. Even stronger grandfather, grandson than father, son. And he trained them, so even stronger, triple strong. They had very strong affection. And yet, when it came to the Kurukshetra battle, he fought on the side of the Kauravas. He knew there's many passages, besides he's such a knowing person, many passages where he specifically, severely chastised Duryodhana. I mean, it's not like he didn't know. So it is a bit of a puzzle. Why did he fight with the Kauravas? Why did he fight with the Kauravas? I mentioned one of the reasons. So he could see Krishna. Another reason is it was part of Krishna's plan. This is what Prabhupada writes in his Bhagavatam purports. It was part of Krishna's plan to show. We had a discussion this morning, like when we read the Bhagavatam, what are the lessons we're supposed to learn from these things? And there's a zillion. One of them is Krishna wanted to show that even if you're the utmost person of stature and respectability and everything, when there's a failure to protect women, you'll be destroyed. How important is protection of women in Vedic culture? Even if your grandfather Bhishma, you neglect it, finished. Krishna wanted to show that, and he did. Because he could have, he with his stature and everything, he could have just said, the Draupadi situation was being addressed. He could have just said, stop it, and it's over. He's grandfather Bhishma, and he didn't. Draupadi turned to him and said, is this right? You learned persons in the assembly here, tell me. He didn't say, and Drona didn't say. He could have. He didn't. Well, it's hard to say. Come on, it's hard to say. He didn't say. Why didn't he say? Krishna wanted to show. Those who don't give protection, when protection is to be performed, they're finished. That maybe not tomorrow, but they're finished already. So his being able to give up his life when he wanted to, let's just do that one, then we'll finish. We all know the story. There's probably nobody, any of our young people. Do you know the story? These two young boys. Yeah, you and the one next to you, by your left shoulder. Do you know the circumstance of Bhishma getting the benediction from his father Santanu that he wouldn't have to die, he wouldn't have to leave his body unless he chose to leave his body? Do you know the story? I bet if I start to tell you, you'll start, oh yeah. Okay, here we go. And there's maybe others in the room, these two girls that are playful, they probably won't even hear what I say. It's story time, pay attention. You might remember it when you grow up and become a big girl. Gonna pay attention? Okay, let's see. Okay, so Santanu had a son. The son was Devarata, who became Bhishma. His name changed from Devarata to Bhishma for the following. He now had a son, but no queen. So one day, he was passing by a place and smelled, this is Mahabharata, he smelled a fragrance that was just otherworldly. And he followed the fragrance, and he came to a place where there was a young woman who was very beautiful and very fragrant. How did she become very beautiful and fragrant? That's a whole long Mahabharata story. She was, it's a long, really long Mahabharata story, but she was being cared for by a fisherman, and she smelled like fish. Fish don't smell good, but that's what she smelled like, in the care of a fisherman. And her father, the fisherman, said, you may, if you take the occupation of helping sages, helping people cross the river in a boat, take up the service of being a boatman, a boat lady. And one day, sure enough, Parashara Muni. You've heard his name before? Parashara Muni? Parashara Muni? Not heard his name before. Great sage, Parashara Muni. He asked the young girl to take him across the river. As he was going across the river in that boat, he was doing an astrological calculation, and he realized at this very moment, an incarnation of the Supreme Lord is going to appear. So he asked the girl, the boat lady, would you be willing to be the mother? And she said, well, I'm not married. And he said, that's okay. You can be the recipient of the child, and no one will know, because the child will be born very quickly, and your purity, your chastity, your virginity will be lost. And she looked at him and said, but we're in the middle of the river. And he said, don't worry, I can make an island. We can go to the island, make the island such that no one can see. And then, they'll be pregnant for some months. She said, no, the pregnancy will be taken care of very quickly. Don't worry. Okay. So what was her name? She had a name but before she got this nice fragrant smell. Matsya Gandha. Matsya is a name for fish, and Gandha means fragrance. She had the fragrance of a fish. So that was her name. So she agreed, and Parashara Muni fulfilled his promise. An island was created, and the name for an island is Dvipa. So he created a mystical island, and she received the pregnancy from Parashara Muni, and as he promised, no one could see, and as he promised, the child was born like that, and the child wasn't just a little baby, the child was a fully grown adult. His name was Dvaipayana, Dvipa, island. He was born on an island. Krishna, Dvaipayana, Vyas, what we know as Vyas. You've heard of Vyasadeva, right? Vyasadeva was the son of Parashara and this Matsya Gandha. So he was so pleased with her, Parashara, that he gave her a benediction. 2 benedictions, 3 benedictions. You'll become very beautiful. You'll smell, your fragrance will be like heavenly fragrance. And the third is, you'll have a son who will become the king. And Vyas, her son, who is now this fully adult person, said, I'm going to go now, but if at any time you need me, just call my name and I'll instantly come. Just call my name, I'll instantly come. So she had 3 benedictions from Parashara and 1 from Vyas. Parashara got to the other side of the river, off he went, And Vyas went to where he went, and she's got these benedictions. She went back and said, Daddy, guess what happened today? And he saw her beauty and sensed the fragrance. So he knew what she was saying wasn't just, she didn't make it up. And now she has, the father, the fisherman, knew this purpose of having her become a boat lady, it's fulfilled because she got this benediction. Now the benediction is her son is going to become a king. And her name changed to Satyavati. Satyavati. Satyavati smelled so, the fragrance was so charming that when the king, Santanu, passed by, he was very attracted. And he came to see the girl, and when he saw the girl, was like, I want to marry this girl. He didn't beat around the bush. So he went to the father of the girl. He didn't say anything to the girl. He went to the father of the girl. May I marry your daughter? I'm the king. He said, no. What? You're a fisherman. I'm offering to marry your daughter. And he said, no, because my daughter's son will become king. And you already have a son. And by law, the firstborn son becomes the next king. So, sorry, King Santanu, but the answer is no. He was firm. But Santanu, Cupid's arrow had pierced his heart. You paying attention? Cupid's arrow had pierced his heart. He was very much eager to marry Satyavati, but the answer from her father was no. He's a king. He could just done anything, but he didn't, because he was a noble person. And he went home, and he became morose, and he was like not into doing his kingly duties anymore. And his son is now Devarata. Devarata said, hey, what happened to Dad? It's like, he looks morose. And the ministers said, because he wants to marry this girl, Satyavati. And the father said no, because he already has a son who's going to become king. So Devarata went to see the fisherman and said, I understand that you want your daughter to not marry my father, but he wants to marry your daughter. And the obstacle is I'm the firstborn son, so I'll take a vow. I won't become the king. So your daughter can then marry my father, and he'll be happy. He said, no. Why no? Because if you marry and your son is born, then your son will become the king if your son is born before my daughter's son. Which is true, it's law. So he said, then I'll take a second vow. I'm not marrying. I won't become the king. And I won't marry. I'll remain brahmachari my life. So the fisherman said, okay, my daughter Satyavati can marry your father. So we went back and told his father, got some good news for you, Dad. You can marry Satyavati. He said, what? How'd that happen? I took 2 vows. He said, then from this day forward, 2 things. Your name will be the one who has taken a great vow. That's the meaning of his name. Bhishma. And the other is, I give you this benediction. He must have been a very powerful king to give such a benediction. But my benediction is, you will not have to choose to leave your body. So he got old, really old, but didn't have to leave his body until he chose to leave his body. And he chose to leave his body in Makara Sankranti because he was a mystic as well as a pure devotee. And when it was their auspicious time, he chose that time today to give up his body. And the rest of the verses following the one we just read describe what the steps of mystic yoga process, the Ashtanga yoga process, and fixing his mind on Krishna, the face of Krishna. Now, you see on the screen, I want to describe this a little bit. Anyone in the room, including the people way over there? Oh, you have a screen, look at that. Oh, that was clever. Has anyone heard of the word astrolabe and knows what an astrolabe is? I spoke about this one time in St. Louis, and there was a young boy about your age, and he knew what an astrolabe is. He heard about it in school. You heard about it in school? No? Anyone here? Okay, here's science class again. Before they had the GPS system, this was a navigation system. And an astrolabe, I learned about this from Sadhuputta. If you want to learn more than what I'm going to say, you can just hear the recordings and read the books of Sadhuputta, and you'll find about astrolabes. A navigation system, supposing once upon a time that people had ships and they didn't have GPS, and they wanted to go from this place to that place. Not necessarily, from the one continent to another, just cross the sea. And it's a vast body of water. And how do you get from point A to point B? If you're out in the sea, you don't know where you are. There's no land markings or anything. So they use two things. They used a compass and an astrolabe. The astrolabe is dependent upon seeing where the constellations are. But it works on the basis of the movements of the sun, as the sun moves through different constellations. And the compass says, which direction you're headed. And the astrolabe tells you where you are. And so there's moving parts. There's, here's something. There says what the parts are. There's a part that moves that looks like a dial. It's called a rule. And this goes way, 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 way back. Way, way back. And there's a way to move. If you look at the bottom piece, there's the 12 signs of the zodiac. There's a diagram for them. And where the sun is passing through certain signs of the zodiac, you can calculate. I can't calculate, but some people that know how to use an astrolabe can calculate where you are based upon the movements of the sun through the different signs of the zodiac. And there's other things where there's shadows and so forth and so on, and you can see where you are on the surface of the earth. Now, this is a photograph of the Temple of Vedic Planetarium. You've seen this before. You've seen it before, right? So, in the central part, that's Radhamadhava's temple dome. On the right side, that's Lord Nrsingadev's temple dome. And on the left side is the planetarium. And I'm going to show you shortly a little video that'll give you a picture of what we described. Now, when I was describing the movements of the sun, I held my hands up like this because the earth is actually a globe. And that the sun moves in relation to the earth in a southerly direction, then a northerly direction, and then back up to the top, and then back down again. And in the course of a year, it does all of that. Every day, day and night. And the seasons are according to the movements of the sun in relation to the earth. Now that's when you have that kind of a picture, but if you have the Vedic picture, it looks different. It's the same movements, but it's described differently. And how it's described differently is Kala Chakra. What does Kala mean? Time. And what does Chakra mean? Wheel. Wheel of time. So everything in our universe, the moving parts of our universe move with the Kala Chakra, starting with the sun. The sun is resting on Kala Chakra. This is the Vedic model. You'll see shortly. It's a little video that the TOVP folks made to explain what's going to go in that left dome. And it has everything to do with Makara Sankranti and, the movements of the sun, etc. Everything to do with the configuration of the universe. So here we go. Kala Chakra is the orbit of eternal time. And it's described that the Kala Chakra moves like the wheel of a chariot. You see, if you took away those three designs in the front, and I don't know how to remove them, there's the golden mountain in the center, Elavarti Varsha. There's a golden mountain, and at the top of the golden mountain is one end of an axle, and the other end of the axle is on the outer circular island with a big wheel. And the wheel moves along that mountain, and the sun, that's that glowing orb there on the axle, that's the chariot of the sun. And the chariot of the sun moves with the movement of Kala Chakra. The Kala Chakra, listen carefully, I'll say it slowly and then you'll see it in the video. The Kala Chakra moves very swiftly, like the potter's wheel moves swiftly in a clockwise direction. So, clockwise direction. It moves like the hands of a clock. Within 24 hours, the Kala Chakra moves 360 degrees in one day. And the movement of the sun is moving very slowly in a counterclockwise direction. So the sun is moving every day in a clockwise direction, like one complete revolution, and simultaneously, the chariot of the sun is moving very, 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 very slowly in the counterclockwise direction. In the Bhagavatam, Maharaj Pariksit says, wait a minute, you said it's moving clockwise, and then now you're saying it's moving counterclockwise. It sounds like a contradiction. Can you explain? Does sound like a contradiction. The way that Shukadeva Goswami answers is really cool. He says, picture in your mind a potter's wheel that's moving quickly in one direction, and there's ants that are moving quickly because they're on the potter's wheel, but they're also very slowly moving in a counterclockwise direction, simultaneously. So the sun is moving swiftly and slowly. Now it's pictured in a vertical dimension, not here's the Earth planet and there's the Sun planet and there's these things happening in space. It's picturing things in a vertical direction. And in this way, the sun is above Bhu Mandala, moving on the Kala Chakra very, very quickly in the counterclockwise direction, clockwise direction, very slowly in the counterclockwise direction. You see here in the video, he says anti-clockwise, means counterclockwise, same. And you'll see in the video, it looks like the chariot is moving backwards. It's because it's moving quickly clockwise, although very slowly it's moving counterclockwise. And that's Kala Chakra. And above the sun, from the vertical dimension, is the moon. In the vertical dimension, above the sun is the moon. You'll see another chariot. And then above the sun and the moon are the next set of planets. The next set of planets, I already mentioned them. Bhuvar Loka. What's Bhuvar Loka? It's the planets of the Kinnaras and Apsaras and Gandharvas and Yakshas and the different Siddhas and so forth. And then the heavenly planets. And above the heavenly planets, the Saptarishis. Above the Saptarishis, Dhruvaloka. And that's the moving part of the exhibit. You'll see it shortly. And then above that is the four remaining upper planetary systems in Brahmaloka, and that's the planetarium. So all of this is just, it's science, it's Vedic cosmology, helping to understand what's Makara Sankranti. Because if you look at it this way, it's moving in a northerly direction, but actually it's the sun moving through the zodiac of Capricorn or Makara. In that slow annual orbit. And that astrolabe tells you where you are. You see where this, in relation to the sun, where this particular constellation is, and you can get a sense of where you are down here. And you can navigate yourself across the sea. Okay, so this is the end. It's just this little video. And we'll see if there's some discussion. I hope it works. Sometimes it works.
So at the bottom of the planetary display, we have Shesha holding up the Earth. This is Shesha, the empowered incarnation. There we have Ananta speaking Bhagavatam to the four Kumaras, and above, the 7 subterranean planets. Here we can see Jambudweep, the central island of Bhumandala, and Bharatvarsha is situated on the southern side of that. 8 other Varshas, with Ilavrita Varsha in the center, various supporting mountains with large trees upon them, described in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the very center of Ilavrita Varsha is Mount Meru, Golden Mountain. Atop Mount Meru are the cities of important demigods, Lord Brahma in the center, 8 Dikpalas in the cardinal directions and sub-directions. Moving out, we can see the broader Bhumandala, 7 concentric islands and oceans surrounding them. The 7th of these islands is Pushkaradweep. On that island is Manasotra mountain, and on the mountain there's various cities of demigods such as Indra. Out further is the Lokaloka mountain. These large elephants stand atop Lokaloka mountain to balance Bhumandala. Outside of Lokaloka mountain is Aloka Varsha, which is dark. The rays of the sun and the other luminaries extend up to Lokaloka mountain. On Manasotra mountain here on Pushkaradweep, the sun travels above this mountain at the southernmost point of its annual orbit. Above Bhumandala is Bhuvarloka, which is the residence of the Charanas, Siddhas, Yakshas, Gandharvas, and above there is Swargaloka, beginning from the sun and extending up to the pole star Dhruvaloka. This is the moving part of the planetary display. Here we can see the sun and the moon moving in their chariots. The chariots are being drawn by horses moving in the anti-clockwise direction, but they're traveling with the wheel of time, moving in the clockwise direction faster. So it looks as if they're moving backwards. Above them are the zodiac of stars, more planets, and another realm of stars. So here we can see everything moving with the Kala Chakra, circumambulating the axis that connects Mount Meru with Dhruvaloka. Above these planets, we come to the planet of the 7 sages, the Saptarshi. You can see them here, they're commonly known as the Big Dipper, and then Dhruvaloka, the pole star. On the ocean of milk situated there, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who is the Paramatma within everyone's heart, he resides on Anantashesh. Moving up beyond there, we have Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. In this video, we haven't included many of the details for there, but on Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, we have residences of the Lord, such as Lord Varaha, Vamana, and so on. Here's Brahmaloka, and on Brahmaloka, we also have a form of the Lord, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, as the Sahasrashesha Purush. We Beyond there is the 7 coverings of the universe, earth, water, fire, etc. And outside of the universes is the abode of Lord Shiva, Shiva Loka. There he resides eternally. Beyond Shiva Loka, we come to Mahavishnu, Karanodakashaya Vishnu, with innumerable universes that are emanating from the pores of his transcendental body. Here you can see him being served by Rama Devi. Then we come to the Brahmajyoti, the effulgence of the Lord's transcendental body. Penetrating through the Brahmajyoti, we come to the Vaikuntha planets. We're showing 24 planets of the Vaikuntha realm in this model. The Lord with 4 arms is holding the conch, disc, club and lotus, and the various combinations of those 4 make 24. Then we come to Goloka Vrindavan. Here we can see Radha Madhava, but we'll also be showing the other primary rasas. Krishna with the cowherd boys, Krishna being served, Krishna with Mother Yashoda. So this is an overview of the planetary display to be shown in the main dome of the temple.
That's all, folks. Makara Sankranti ki jai. And it's made possible by Kala Chakra, the wheel of time, upon which the sun moves slowly through the zodiac of stars. And one of those marks Makara Sankranti, the constellation of Capricorn or Makara, and the sun entering into that constellation. So let's see if there's some discussion. We have a portable microphone, and it's magical. You just raise your hand, and you get the microphone, and you can ask your question. We'll have some discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
There you are, okay.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I think, Makar Sankranti happens on like the cusp, or no, sorry, not the cusp, but like right where Sagittarius ends and Capricorn begins.
Well, the sun exits that constellation and enters the next constellation.
Okay.
The movement of the sun leaving one and entering the other.
So that's not like on the day that happens in like the, I don't know, the English astrological calendar? Because that happened like December or something, right?
Capricorn begins, the constellation of Capricorn begins sometime mid-December. And it ends sometime whatever it is.
January. Yeah, I think.
And that's the age of that constellation. However, the movement of the sun is not exactly that. The movement of the sun is leaving this constellation, entering that constellation.
Got it.
They're not identical. Therefore, the Vedic calendar is, they say, lunisolar. It's a mix. Our Western calendar is solar.
Yeah.
And there's other parts of the world that's entirely lunar. The Vedic calendar is a mix.
So it happens according to like the lunar.
The sun, I can just say what it says.
Okay.
It may take a while for our little binary processor called the mind to like adjust to what's going on here. But the sun, the movements of the sun are not identical with where the constellations are prominent. But when the sun moves from this constellation to that constellation, there's a Sankranti. There's 12 of them. Makara Sankranti it enters into Capricorn. The sun enters into that constellation. I can only repeat what it says. Yes, I see a hand in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. It is said that Bhishma Panchaka is the last 5 days of Kartik Mas. when Lord Bhishma spoke transcendental knowledge to Yudhishthir, and it so appears that he was alive for over a month.
I can't answer your question. I don't think that's what Bhishma Panchaka is. I'm not sure that you're wrong. I'm not sure that you're right. So I can't respond. The way the Bhagavatam is constructed, it's just prior. It's not a month prior. So the premise of your question has me baffled. Your premise of your question, I don't think is right.
Sure, Maharaj.
In the front here.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
I go.
Talking about zodiac signs. So while I was a child growing up, developing my devotion and faith, I was also introduced to zodiac signs. I remember
It was due to what?
to the zodiac signs, the stars, constellations, Makar, Rashi, and all that.
Did you have a attraction for that science?
So I would read it initially when I was introduced every day. Hindustan Times, one of the papers in India,
Okay.
would tell you what your day would look like based on that. On when it is written good, I'll be happy. When it's written bad, I'm like, oh my God. And when the faith developed, I stopped caring. Should I care?
Well, it depends. You don't become a stone, but what you care about may change. So care for, what the stars say, that you can put that to the side. But then you take that care tendency and repose it somewhere. So it's best to repose it in that which is eternal, rather than that which is sometimes and sometimes, the world of duality. And in one sense, some people say the stars control. In other sense, they're just indicators of something. They tell you some indication. And the strength of bhakti is one can overcome that something. We're not controlled by it. The it is controlled by the Supreme. And so, go for the care capacity should go for sat instead of asat. That's all. Change the channel.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I see a hand way in the back. Mataji's got her hand up.
So in the video.
Take your mask down so I can hear you better. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, in the video of the planetary systems, on the top there was a Mahavishnu. What type of Vishnu was that?
Which Vishnu you want to know?
The top.
Yeah, he's Mahavishnu. That's where does Mahavishnu reside? He resides in the causal ocean. Let me ask you let's remember. You know who Vamana is, the little dwarf Brahmin?
Yes.
So he approached Bali, 3 paces of land. He said, sure. With 2 paces of land, he poked his toe through the covering of the universe. What's on the other side of the covering of the universe? Mahavishnu.
Okay.
That's where he is. And he's reclining on the Karana ocean, or the causal ocean. So he's Karana Dakshayi Vishnu, or Mahavishnu, and there's the equivalent. That's where he is.
Okay.
Okay?
There's a question online.
Okay.
Is it okay to seek Kala or time as a personified aspect of Krishna? Can time be a person for Vaishnavas?
Yes. No. Has anyone seen Mr. Time? We see the influence, but who has seen? Now, in Western cartoonism, they picture Time as this faceless, black-cloaked old man that's carrying a big saber over his shoulder, and he comes as death. Time, I am the destroyer of all things. That's one of the depictions of Time. It's pretty gruesome. But, you know, the answer to your question is behind everything, there's a person. Now, are you able to see the person that's behind everything? Most likely not. But is there? Yes. There's a Supreme Person, and there's expansions of the Supreme Person, including his Shaktis, and the Shaktis are also personified. It's wonderful. And then there's what we don't, there's what we may experience is the Shakti itself, or the power, potency. But behind the power and potency, there's the person, the potent, Shaktiman. Anything else? Ladies?
Sorry?
Either you're very satisfied or I didn't do a good job to explain things.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. How are we Gaudiya Vaishnava followers supposed to observe Makar Sankranti?
You know my answer to that. It depends. You know, if you're in India, you can go to Gangasagara, or if you're in Gaya, you can offer Shraddha, or you know, it depends. So what are we doing? We're Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and we're remembering what it is. And it's an auspicious day, and it's an auspicious day for auspicious things. So we can take advantage of that auspiciousness in a variety of ways. The speaking about it is one of them. Speaking about Grandfather Bhishma is one of them. So those are things we can do. Remember that it's a special day, and then honor it, and do auspicious things on the auspicious day so that great benefit will go to you and to others.
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki?
His Holiness Romapada Maharaj ki.